Sayın konuklar, Türk Mühendis ve Mimar Odaları Birliği Elektrik Mühendisleri Odası'nda ev sahipliğinde düzenlenen 4. Atex Patlayıcı Ortamlarda Güvenlik Sempozyumu 2. gününe hepiniz hoş geldiniz. İkinci çağrılı bildirimiz başlayacaktır. Çağrılı bildirinin yönetimini yapmak üzere Kocaeli Üniversitesi'nden Sayın Yardımcı Doçent Doktor Necmi Cemal Özdemir'i davet ediyoruz.
Günaydın değerli misafirler. Bir not iletmemi istediler. Onun için biraz bekliyorum. Kusura bakmayın. Peki. Dün anons edilmesi gereken bir not vardı. O nedenle önce onu size paylaşmak istiyorum. Dünkü konuşmacı rahatsızlığı, özel davetli konuşmacı rahatsızlığı nedeniyle gelememiş. Bu anlamdaki mazeretini özellikle belirtmemizi rica etti. Ben de bu yük bende kalmasın diye arkadaşların ricasını yerine getirdim. Kısa bir giriş yapacağım. Hem bu arada güneşli havada belki arkadaşlar biraz güneşledikten sonra gelirler. Hakikaten çok önemli bir konuğumuz var. Belki birkaç arkadaşımız da onun aktaracağı bilgilerden yararlanmış olur canlı olarak. Türkiye'de birçok şehir karanlıktayken 1930'lu yıllarda 12 tane elektrik santraline sahip olan Zonguldak'tayız. 927'de Zonguldak Belediyesi'nin santrali 1982'de devrediliyor. 48 ile 52 arasında Atex devreye girdikten sonra Zonguldak'tan elektriğe ve tüm Marmara bölgesine buradan elektrik gidiyor. Tabii bu verileri kaynak göstererek bahsetmek çok daha iyi olur diye düşündüm. Bununla ilgili dün gördüğüm güzel bir kitap yazmış Sayın Ali Kaya Bey. Zamanı olup durumu uygun olanların o kitaptan almasını öneririm. Bülent Ecevit Üniversitesi Rektör Vekili misafirperverliğin yanında çok da mütevazi bir beyefendi. Dün makamında sohbet imkanımız oldu. 1924'te Maden Mektebi, Maden Meslek ve Başçavuşlar Okulu, Mühendislik Fakültesini olarak Hacettepe Üniversitesi'ne bağlanıyor. 92'de Zonguldak Kara Elmas oluyor. Ve 2012'de ismi değiştirilerek Bülent Ecevit Üniversitesi oluyor. 13 tane fakülte ki bunların içerisinde tıp fakültesi de var, araştırma hastanesi de var, mühendislik fakültesi de var. 3 enstitü, 5 yüksekokul, 7 meslek yüksekokulu, konservatuvar, 35 araştırma merkezi, 38-40 bin öğrencisi bulunuyor. 7-24 açık kütüphanesi var ve öğrencilere hem sabah hem de öğleden sonra çorba ikram ediliyor. Bunlar önemli öğrenci arkadaşlar için. Bir önceki rektör Sayın Mahmut Özer, profesör, şu anda ÖSYM Başkanı. Rektör vekili Prof. Doktor Ali Azar, Karadeniz Teknik Üniversitesi mezunu. Çok iyi hocalardan ders almış. Hatta bu hocaların bir kısmı bizim Kocaeli Üniversitesi'nde hala öğretim üyelikleri yapıyorlar. Kendini yetiştirmiş ve 97 yılından beri bu üniversitenin elemanı. Çok değerli bir bilim adamı. Zonguldak'ı bu anlamda şanslı görüyorum. Türkiye'de birinci, dünyada da 227. en yeşil kampüs. Bize üniversite olanaklarını açtığı için ben Sayın Rektör Vekiline bir kez daha teşekkür ediyorum. 14, 15, 16 Aralık'ta EMO Adana Şubesi'nce Adana'da enerjinin geleceği sempozyumu var. Buna da katılmakta yarar var arkadaşlar. Katılan meslektaşlarımızın İsa ve Riyasi Güngör kardeşler var. Hepiniz tanırsınız. Ondan mutlaka Adana'daki kebapçı Recep Usta'nın adresini almalarını öneririm. Evet. Günümüzde akıllı şehirler konuşuluyor arkadaşlar. 20 gün önce Barcelona'daydım. Smart City etkinliği vardı. Geçen hafta Çevre ve Şehircilik Bakanlığı'nın coğrafya bilgi sistemlerinin ana başlığı akıllı şehir olan bir etkinliği vardı Ankara'da. Burada da tüm verilen örnekler hep yangın üzerineydi. Çok da yerinde ve anlamlı aslında. Çünkü sabah 8 haberlerinde Kaliforniya'da halen devam eden yangında 90 bin dönüm orman arazisinin yandığı, 150 bin kişinin yer değiştirdiği ve 12 bin evin zarar gördüğü verisi var. Bize geldiğimizde de en son 7 Kasım 2017'de Dilovası'nda bir yakıt dolum tesisinde çok kötü olayların yaşandığını biliyoruz. Evet, bu durumda madem ki çok fazla yangın ve patlamalarla ilgili olaylar yaşanıyor, biz de durumdan vazife çıkararak Kocaeli Üniversitesi Yangın Araştırma ve Uygulama Birimi, Sakarya Üniversitesi Yangın Araştırma Uygulama Merkezi ortak hareket edecek bir platform oluşturdu. Bu platforma da itfaiyeciler grubunu da ekledik. Kocaeli Büyükşehir İtfaiye Daire Başkanlığı, gerek yurt dışındaki diğer itfaiye birimlerine, gerekse yurt dışındaki diğer itfaiye birimlerine eğitim veren bir yapıda. Meydana gelen büyük kaza ve sonrasında endüstriyel kazaların oluşmasının engellenmesi ve gerekli önlemlerin alınması adına hazırlanmış SEVASO yapısı için bir yeni şube müdürlüğü oluşturuyor Kocaeli Büyükşehir Belediyesi. Sadece Kocaeli'nde direkt SEVASO kapsamında olan 64 ama var mı yok mu gibi ikilemde olanlar totalde 3000 tane sanayi kuruluşunun bu yapıda denetlenmesi gündemde. Bu bağlamda da onlarla paralel çalıştığımızdan o gruptaki 2 arkadaşımız itfaiyeden burada aramızda. Bu amaçla da bu konularda iyi bir örnekleme olması açısından şu andaki vizyonda olan Korkuslar filmini izlemenizi öneririm. Oturumun işleyişiyle ilgili de kısa bir şey söylemek istiyorum. Dün çevirmen arkadaşlarla sohbet etme imkanı buldum. Bir tanesi hemşerim Hataylı. Hocam her şeyi Türkçe olarak lütfen telaffuz edin, ettirin. Biz onu İngilizceye çevirelim. Ama soru kısmında soru sormak isteyenler olursa lütfedip önce Türkçesini söylesin, ardından İngilizcesini söylesin. Ve biz bu arada zaman kazanmış, hem daha verimli bir çeviri olmuş olur diye bir şey söylediler. Ben de tabii ki dedim, çok yerinde bir yaklaşım. Onu lütfen uymaya çalışalım. Bir de dün şey oldu mesela, sorular geldi. Bir kısmında oldu, bir kısmında olmadı. Soru soran arkadaşlarımızın, dostlarımızın kendini ve firmasını tanıtması çok yerinde olur diye düşünüyorum. Bu tip etkinliklerin zaten en büyük artısı o. Birbirimizi tanımak, dayanışmak kurmak diye düşünüyorum. Ona da bağlı kalırsak memnun olurum. Evet, ben şimdi sözü bu da farklı değil. Yine önemli gerekçelerle oturumun konuşması değişti. Ama biraz önce sohbet fırsatı buldum, sohbet ettim. Ben diyor Sherlock Holmes sülalesindenim, Andrew Holmes. Ben kürsüyü ona bırakıyorum. Buyurun.
just make sure the microphone's working okay. Thank you very much for that nice introduction, and it's nice to see so many faces here. Some I recognise, and there's lots of new ones to be introduced to later. Firstly, I'd like to say thanks for inviting me to your seminar. Also, you can tell from my accent, I'm from London in the United Kingdom. But I'd like to say thank you to the committee for allowing me to come to present to you in this most prestigious seminar. Firstly, I'd also like to say that the committee last night presented us a very nice evening of food and entertainment. So a small round of applause for the people. Thank you very much for your entertainment. I appreciate that. Okay. I'm quite fluid in my presentations, so I'll be using a walk-around microphone rather than standing here. So hopefully you'll be interactive with me as we go through this seminar. One, two. Okay, so as I said, I'm Andy Holmes, or Andrew Holmes, as my esteemed colleague introduced me as a relative to Sherlock Holmes. I don't know if anyone knows that abbreviation or connection, but from an inspection point of view, I'm not sorry if I have any sort of ancestral connections with that, but it's a very nice introduction. Thank you very much. I am a Principal Certification Engineer and Technical Manager at CML Certification. We are a notified body for Atex and a CB for the ACX scheme. This presentation assumes you all have a very good basic understanding of the EX environment, which from the past days' seminars and information that people I've spoken to seems to be the case, especially from the colleagues from the front when we were talking about coal mines and different area classifications, etc., etc. I'd also like to point out at this particular point in time a special thanks to MTM and Trolex for inviting me to come to your symposium. I found out a week and a half ago that I would be requested to come, so I'm hoping that you appreciate the interaction we're going to have. So what is competence? How do we gain competence? Well, it's a very important subject and one that's talked about very lengthy. Some people shy away from it, feel like it's an examination of what they're trying to do. Other people then take it on board and try and achieve. I think this is going through it automatically. But it's the ability to do something successfully or efficiently. So we have to really, even if we're looking at the EX world, or for example, me coming to you from London, I had to be competent to get the aircraft, to get to meet to my colleagues at the airport, to get the transit bus to here to be with you. It's all about how you interact. So you have to look at your ability and your efficiency to do something, to be competent. That can be looked at from a functional safety point of view, from an EX point of view, from anything we do. So, from an explosive atmospheres point of view, are we just related to industry? Well, let's just have a quick example. If someone could press my video to go. Is there anybody there for? I'll do it. So here we are looking at a piece of process equipment, so quite clearly we could see something going wrong. In one spectrum of light, and in another, this is particular imagery is using FLIR thermal cameras, we can see the problem. So we need to be able to understand what we're looking at. So the competence of using the cameras. In one instance you'd be looking around the plant thinking there's not a problem, and in the other instance quite clearly there is. We can move that across to our everyday life. And here we have, I'll let you play. So you can see now we're in our home environments. We're storing chemicals, we're no ventilation, could be anything. So the purpose of these slides is really just to say that competence is not just for industry, it's for residential, it's for everything we do. Okay? So hopefully you would agree with me on that one. So from a competence point of view, we have to look at the occurrence of explosive atmosphere. I know we're talking about EX. We have to look at the ignition hazard, whether there is a risk. And then afterwards we can use, in this EX well, protection methods to either contain it, mitigate it, let it happen, control it, how we're going to do it. So this presentation, I had to put this together quite quickly, so there's about 50 slides, so I will whiz through quite a few of them, I'll go through them quite quickly, and then we can have a discussion at the end. So a brief introduction about CML. We're located in between Manchester and Liverpool. We have two very large facilities, laboratory facilities and office space. Currently we are helping and supporting markets all over the world. In particular, we are now looking at the Japanese market, and we are able to produce Japanese certificates in the UK for products going into EX in Japan, as well as all the other things that we're familiar with, i.e. CX, Atex, for the different market areas. We are a CB, therefore, and we're also an EXTL. I'm hoping that you appreciate all of the abbreviations for the test laboratory and the standards that I'm talking about on the slides. I'm not going to go in detail because I don't have much time. Okay? So from a testing point of view, we have all of the protection concepts for EX, for Group 1, Group 2. And if anybody's interested, I don't know if you've seen me on the Trolex stand, we have posters that if you come up to me afterwards, you can have a free poster. As many as I've got, you can have, which will show you all of these different protection concepts. So the Atex directives. When we say competence, and everyone comes to me and says, I want to certify my product. There it is, it's the black box. And I say, where's it going? Where's it going to go to? I've got no idea. Is it going to go in a mine? Is it going to go in a sugar factory, Imperial Sugars in America? Where's it going to go? So the first thing we have to do is you look at the user directive. The second thing we do is we look at a protection concept, the Atex product directive, and from the two, then we have a compliant piece of product that's going into an area that's been classified. The two marry together to have a safe concept. Now the last slide was related very generally. Obviously, if you've got very large plants and storage of, in this case, LPG and LNG, then we need to look at different directives because of the associated risks, the disaster recovery plans and things like that. So from a legislation point of view, Atex, the user, the plants, symbols, very, very important to understand. The directives, and also from a UK point of view, I'm talking the UK now, we also connect the Chemical Agents Directive into the Workplace Directive, or the Atex Workplace Directive, under something called the SEER, which is our area classification. It's the first thing to do. There's no point in putting EX equipment into an area where you haven't defined what the area is. It has to be assessed first. So the second thing to do is from a product point of view. Now we're looking at product symbols. And the Equipment Directive, which I'm fully aware, and hopefully you are too, of the change in the directive. Is everyone aware of the change in the directive? Any hands? One hand. Okay, two hands. Okay, so we've moved on. Just going back over the same information. So the reason I said is everyone aware of the two directives. We used to have 94.9 EC, and that changed to 2014-34 EU, along with other ones like the EMC directive, machinery directive have already moved over to the new legislation. But the main requirements, if you're used to assessing down to the 949EC directive, aren't very many. So we've got to change from an EC to an EU. Certificates may have an expiry date, but in my experience they haven't. Classification, declaration of conformity, etc. So a bit about product conformity assessment. This is another thing that was asked for discussion. What sort of things do we do from a conformity assessment point of view, from a competence? Well, obviously from a laboratory point of view and a testing point of view, we need to be competent in how we test the product, whether it's flame-proof, whether it's increased safety, intrinsic safety, whatever it is. So the first thing we ever do, from a competence point of view, is we look at ignition hazard assessment. Now, hopefully, my colleagues from other notified bodies sitting in the second row will see these and they'll understand what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to look at the particular equipment and finding out if there are any sources of ignition, heat, sparks, flames, whatever it is. We then use harmonised standards to use a presumption of conformity to the essential health and safety requirements of the directive. We review the Atex product directive to make sure that all the essential health and safety requirements have been addressed by the particular product standards. The manufacturer at the end produces a declaration of conformity with the supporting evidence that the product's been assessed. Whether it needs to be assessed by a notified body, in this case, depends on the category of the equipment. So from a categories point of view, we have category 1, category M1 rather, and M2 for mines. And then we have for surface group, for equipment group 2, we have 1G or 1D for the dust classification, 2G, 2D, 3G or 3D. Now, all of this information is put into the directive, but in our experience, there's still some misunderstandings about how to apply this. So in the guidance notes, they came out with this table, or formula. So for group 2, category 3 equipment, a manufacturer can do self-assessment. And they say, that's good, we can do that. So the first thing I say, bearing in mind this speech is about competence, can you actually do that? Do you have the staff in your facility to be able to make the judgments that that equipment is safe and choose the right standards to do? Okay? Moving across, and we're going up in risk because we're trying to control the ignition source, so we're putting in more measures to make sure the ignition cannot become active. Now we have instances where we've got quality management system audits as well as product audits. So we've got a product manufacturing capability up here, which will be done by a notified body, and we've got a notified body position down here where we'll be conducting audits. So not only have we got competence in product assessment, but we've also got competence in the auditors that are going out to these facilities for ISO 9001, for example, hopefully you're familiar with that, or a similar type of quality management system. And then also the additional requirements for Atex. Does anybody know what the additional requirements for Atex are from a quality management system point of view? Anybody? Oh, okay, so it's the series 879-34. So it's important for the auditor to have competence as well. It's not just about the person that's installing it on site, it's about the whole process. And then the last one, as we're going into the higher risk zones, then obviously the requirements are more. Harmonised standards, well, if you look at the European website, you'll see, and it's a very good idea to continually look, because they update the harmonised list. As a standard goes out of harmonisation, it can't be used as presumption of conformity. So we need to constantly measure and monitor this. Particularly important if you're looking at category 3, for example, and you're doing your own internal manufacturing, then you need to be aware of this. So what sort of tests for competence? Well, we could be looking at motors. Well, obviously we've got electrical systems here now, which could be three-phase, they could be high power. So we need to have engineers that are experienced not only in the EX side of things, but also electrical safety, to understand what the risks are. When we impact a product, we do AP testing on products, all of these types of things, thermal conditioning, thermal stability and thermal monitoring, rising temperatures, everything requires the person to be in a particular instance in a training program to be able to say they're competent to do something. This is all to do with general competence. Even down to the fact of flameproof, which I know a lot of you probably be involved in. I hear a lot in this seminar in the last sort of day of mining equipment and EXD and shutdown systems and things like that. So flameproof. Who knows about the requirements for where we can position flameproof equipment? Does the flange, in this case the flange, can that be a certain distance, or can it be close to something else, or does it have to be a distance away? These are all things that need to be understood. In that instance, it's all the installation standards, okay, where to position it. So in that instance, if you are looking at it from a point of view of an installation or an assembly, then obviously that assembly manufacturer needs to understand. Okay? Is it good so far? Enjoy? Okay. So, electrical creepage and clearances. We've got earthing connections, making sure everything's got continuity, everything is tight, we're not getting any sparking issues. And what would we do from a product approvals point of view? Well, we'd go through an assessment report, so we would check from the notified body point of view everything that has been done. And the product is safe for its first look through, and then hopefully passes the QMS system. After that's finished, the certificate that's produced, and I'll say this is for a, I don't know, category 2 product, for example, the certificate will be used by the manufacturer to move forward to a declaration of conformity. It is not. That is not the end game. That is not the end game for the manufacturer. The manufacturer still is responsible for placing his product on the market, so he produces his own declarations, his supporting information. Oh, that's Eric. So a little bit about zones, categories, relationships. Hopefully from what I'm saying now, you appreciate that it's not just about getting a tick box, it's not just about getting a little passport ticket or a, I've got a whole bag of them. I've sat an exam and I've done this and I've done that. Well, I sat an exam for something and I don't use it for 10 years. Does that make me competent anymore? No. What type of industries? Oh, loads of them. I don't know if anyone's familiar with these graphics, but you can get them all from the guidance notes that come with the directive. With the, in this case, it's the user, the site directive. If anybody would like any of this information, if you come and see me on the Trolex stand, I've got lots of it to give away. If you give me a USB flash stick, I can give you lots of freebie information to help you, support you. So, the reason I put my first slide up was here. This is common in situations where I've been. My work environment for the last sort of 6-7 years has been mainly going off and looking at onshore, offshore particular sites, and we see this quite often. Poor sites, inspections bad, nobody sees it because you can't see it, because you can't see the visible spectrum. Well, you can see the visible spectrum, you can't see the product problem. So the first thing to do, the area classification and the user directive. Then we do zoning. This is very, very fundamental. And my colleague yesterday was talking about some zoning. Hopefully everyone's familiar with zoning. Yeah? It's a bit like a dartboard, and we'll go through a few bits in a minute. I hope everyone says yes, because I'll get somebody up on stage in a minute to help me show me something. So we have a sort of a dartboard effect, where the central point would be a zone 0, going out to a zone 1, zone 2. Some people in the industry call it a safe area around the outside. I tend to call it a non-hazardous zone. Just so we don't just suddenly get from this point on the radius to here and we're safe. We still have to make sure that we understand. And even from someone says to me, okay, well I've sat on a competence assessment scheme, well-known one maybe, here we're down here, IEC, IECX, maybe people have heard of the competence scheme, which we'll get onto at the end. I've sat on that, and I've got my EX, I think it's a 002, and now I know everything about this. Okay? So I asked, this tank system here, dangerous when it's empty, not so dangerous when it's full for different reasons. Cleaning it. Does anybody see any issues with cleaning the tank when it's had flammables in it? It hasn't got the flammables in it, but we lower somebody into the tank because it's a very large tank. Do we have any other issues? Well, I wouldn't want to go in there unless I had breathing apparatus, for example. So then the breathing apparatus then needs to be Atex certified, etc., etc. We can't go in there with a high pressure water jet, for example, because what does high pressure water jet do or achieve on the inside of the tank? It could generate static, maybe create some uninsulated parts. So an explosion protection document, and hopefully even wherever you're working, whichever zone you're working, if you're a user or a plant operator, then these are very, very important things to have. And these are the packages that will be looked at if in the event of a problem, they will look to see what assessments you've taken, because let's face it, we can't remove the risk to zero. We have to mitigate and we control the risk as far as we can. But the explosion risks have been identified and assessed. Sounds obvious, but everyone's under pressure, everyone's under time constraints to sort things out. Still needs to be done. Adequate measures have been taken to attain the aims of the directive, and so forth. So the important thing here is that it applies to small and medium enterprises. And time after time, we go to small production facilities, whether it's, for example, it could be a sugar factory or a flour mill, or quite often, I know I'm quite nearer China than I normally am, but in China we have lots of rolling machines for flour, for making all of their dim sum. Very nice, I like it very much, but they have machines, so they have a machinery directive requirement, then they have the EX requirement, and then they need to control all those things. Again, it's education. There's no one scheme that will give you competence in everything straight away. Competence is gained by, in my opinion, my humble opinion, by education from an academic, basic electrical engineering, for example, and then mechanical engineering, through to EX understandings and a continual life cycle. I will not stop learning until I die. Scenario, which hopefully will be a long time then. So we've talked about zones, so I won't go through that again. Just to give you some examples, this presentation I believe is given out with the other presentations, am I correct? Yeah? So, okay. And then from the same point of view we have dust. Oh. Where do we go? Can you type go? Oh. Sorry, too many buttons. It's okay, I'll sort it out. I'll do it. This is a rapid speech. So we are. Oh, here. So, in my offshore environments, we have a limited space offshore because we have effectively a platform on stilts in water. So, what do? We have an inventory of product, and we want the product to cover lots of areas. We briefly discussed about different zones, for example. Well, I could say that all of my products that I'm going to keep on my oil platform will be category 1, because it's got the most security, it's the best one I can have, because it's suitable for all of, for example, 1G is suitable for all the zones. The disadvantage of that is that this costs a lot more money to design, develop, quality management system, etc., than this does. So you need to understand where your product is going, sell it effectively, and then for operators to use it in the correct zones. We talk about inspection as competence. Well, I've been to sites where I've seen a zone 3D, zone 22 rather, which should have 3D equipment in it, because it was in dust, it was in Liverpool, or Liverpool ports, and the lights weren't certified. So the lights up here were not certified. And when the machine came in, it dumped all of this product on the floor, and there was a big dust cloud. So the dust cloud goes up onto the light is hot, we have potential. Okay? So which leads me on to the sort of life cycle. Hopefully now I've drilled you into the fact that we start with the area classification. We look at material safety data sheets. Hopefully people are familiar with that. We do area classification. We define the zone of each use, so then we can look at what equipment we need to use. And then we install it. Now, I'm going to ask for hands here because I'm interested. Has anyone ever heard of Compex? Are there any hands going up for Compex? One. Like an auction. One, okay. Has anyone heard of the stand here? 679-14. 2, 3. Come on, we need some more hands. Don't be shy, I'm the one standing here. Okay. It's just so I get an idea of understanding. So, prior to first use, we need to look at the plant, we need to look at the process, and we need to inspect. So we've got a competence thing going on here. We want to look at, make sure that the equipment that we've selected, which has all been good by the manufacturers, has arrived on site, and it's good, so it's been inspected. Imagine it's been damaged in transit. And then, it's been installed correctly, and then it's been inspected again, before we turn the magic green button on. After we've done that, and the process has been running for a number of months, hopefully not years, but a number of months, we need to review and confirm the system is controlled and safe to operate. So we need a periodic thing, we need to look at things, and for example, even if the other week I was looking at a machine that was processing titanium powder, or was it aluminium powder, I can't remember now, but anyway, a powder. So we need to look at that and go, oh, is it safe? Oh, sorry. There's 2 sensitive buttons. Is it safe? Well, we need to look at it from a yearly inspections point of view, to bring it in, to make sure it's safe. There's no point in doing something and then not doing anything at the end. It's a continual, what I'll call up here is a life cycle, and I believe the colleague yesterday afternoon was talking about HAZOPs and functional safety. The same thing, we need a life cycle approach, cradle to grave type. And then review the process, and if any changes have happened, for example, in this picture here, we've changed the product. We've now changed from, maybe, I don't know, methane to hydrogen. So we've gone up in risk, because hydrogen is a lot more flammable and a lot easier to ignite than methane. Is everyone familiar with these sort of gas groups, etc., and things like that? To A to B to C? With EX stuff, when I first started in this industry, there were a lot of readings to do. I'm an electrical engineer, then a mechanical engineer. I worked for companies like, hopefully you know, GEC, GC Marconi's, very good engineering companies. This was another level of information and labels, and hopefully the labels, in my opinion, you need to make it as simple as possible, because labels are the biggest bugbear of everyone's life. Everyone wants a certificate, don't they? Because it gives them some happy feeling. The responsibility's yours. You do sign that now. So let's just have a quick look through. I don't show how I'm getting on for time. Am I still okay? Yeah? Come see, come start? Okay. So, a material safety data sheet. I'll just quickly do this. Area classification. Define the zone. So in this hypothetical example, we've designed the zone. This is one that I'm familiar with from a sort of a, maybe not 2C, but an offshore point of view. We've got the zone, we've got the gas group, we've got the T-class. So if we look back at our installation standard, which is another one on the COPC, we can look at our part 14. Done all the hard work. Now we've got to go over this side to look at the selection of the equipment. So I'm going to select my equipment. What do I need to do? These are all my options. This is where I believe the Atex COPC comes in. This is where I like the idea. But it can't detract from all the front-end engineering stuff that you've achieved up to moving from there to here. Okay? Maybe this has got an EMC issue. I'll hold it apart. So what can we use? We've got zone 2. Can we use Cat 1 equipment in zone 2? I'm sorry if this is not going about mining. I've heard a lot about mining, but a lot of our industry is zone 2, so category 2, sorry. So can we use Cat 1? Yep. Okay. Can we use Cat 2? And 3. We've got an ideal situation, we can select anything from that market in that category. But then we move across to gas group, so we can't use 2A. Could be 2C. Do you see the scenario? Unfortunately, we can't program a PLC, a programmable logic controller, to sort this out. We have to be human. And the biggest risk with any of this EX world, in my humble opinion, is the human interface. Because that's where we have the problems. Okay? So this is the last section. It's a bit. How many minutes have I got? 10? 5 minutes. So, a little bit about ACX schemes. Certified equipment, service, marking, certified persons. The only ones we're really, from a CML point of view, certified equipment, obviously, because we are a CV, we're putting product into the market. Okay, we're testing product to go into the market. Certified Service Facility Scheme, it's basically a route for somebody to be a manufacturer or an approved, registered facility to be able to service and repair. Conformity marking, we don't really get into that at all, to be honest with you. It's part of the scheme, I have to mention it. And then Certified Person Scheme. Well, all the things I've been talking about for the last, might seem like 2 hours for you, but 20 minutes, half an hour for me. It's all talking about certified persons. How do we make somebody competent? Well, in the same way, I'm going to use this because it's quite a good slide. If anyone's been through an IECX assessment for their product, will know that we have an EXTR test report. The test report will be done by an EXTL, so we're now getting all the abbreviations. A test laboratory will generate a test laboratory report, which will then go into a test report by an engineer, by example by myself. The manufacturer will have a QAR, so we have another level of assessment for the quality side of things, to produce a CFC. The ACX system is very good because it allows it to be done by somebody, say, I don't know, my ex-colleagues in Germany, in Munich, in TÜV, and then they pass to me the responsibility for doing the QAR, because the company is in the UK. for example. And then we can produce a CFC. So different parts of the scheme can be addressed by different CBs. Well, it's important to realise that the CB has to be accredited, has to be competent to be able to do certain things. Okay? That's explaining that in a nutshell. Slight differences between Atex and IECX, and this will be presented and given away with literature, so I won't go into too much detail. But Atex versus IECX, important things to know. Atex allows self-assessment for category 3 products, whereas IECX does not. There are no categories in IECX. That is a directive thing. That's an Atex thing. EPLs, which I haven't gone in today. I'm trying to concatenate everything today. Normally this goes on a lot longer. Equipment protection levels, expressed in protection concepts and zones of usage. If you look at the poster that we've got, it will show some information on there, but it references back to the Part 14 again. Both use the same protection concepts, which is important, because if you don't come to a manufacturer, a certification body, and I had somebody come to the Trolex stand yesterday and said to me, can you look at my load cells or whatever it was, I can't remember. I'd say, yes you can, and we'll do Atex and IECX, because they're the same testing requirements, maybe slightly different standards in an addition, but the bulk of it's the same. But when we look at purely Atex, we have to look at the harmonised standards list. This is where its competence comes in again. Which list do I look at? Which one's important? And then if we flick over to the IE6 side of things, we can reference by addition. But we can also then roll it back one addition. So there are different ways of achieving things, but it's all about competence. So, how can someone be competent? This is my rounding up bit. Who would like to come up and present themselves as being competent? And I'll... would anybody like to come up? No? Okay. Do you think I'm competent to do it all? No. Good. I like the way you're shaking your head. Education for academic processes and teachings. Teachings is coming from my German presentations. Understanding from an education point of view, where you start from. Even from the coal mining and things we were talking about, we start from a single point and then we move forward. Industrial experience, my personal interaction with that is that I was an apprentice first, so I was at the bottom of the ladder. I was collecting the sparks for the grinder and things like that. I had peer relationships, so I learned from other people. Education, training in appropriate areas. Now, why is competence required and where is it from? Well, if we looked at, stand back to the classes on, Part 14 and 19, obviously this is this installation standard and a repair standard. They're called out specifically in these clauses. Clause 4.4, I believe. I will check that. For the owner operator, because the ultimate responsibility is on the owner operator. Well, these manufacturers are producing all of this equipment, and it's the end guy that has the plant who has the ultimate responsibility. The IECX competence is assessing the individual, not the company. So it's almost like a little passport. I've got my passport here to get in and out of the country. Well, the IECX can have a passport type thing to say that you've achieved a certain level. You've sat an exam, you've passed a practical test. Independent from company instruction and teachings, well, we can have something that's remote, conflicts of interest. There's no point in me lecturing to my colleague here, him agreeing with everything I'm saying, because I could be wrong. But if I had my technical director here, who was standing next to me, he might be going, no, we don't know. So we have different types of understanding. If you stuck 6 engineers in the room at the same time, all of them would have a different opinion, wouldn't they? So the IECX COPC is being developed. 17024, this is general requirements for the EXCB, for example, for us. certifying people. It has to be separate from the equipment certification screen that I talked about earlier. It has to be separate from the CB, not to be secret from a different side. It has operational documents in it for how we conduct this. Good summary items. If anyone's familiar with the ACX route, they know that they can go on the ACX website anywhere in the world and they can call up a certificate. Yes, this is a compliant piece of product. And off we go. Same thing with COPC. There's a whole list of people. So you, from if there's any users here and they want somebody to install something on their plant, can go onto this website and call off the person or select somebody. 3 years surveillance, so what we're after is it's like a passport. So I sit my exam, pass my exam, pass my theory, pass my practical test, I'm issued with a certificate, and then after 3 years, then I do another one, and then another one, and then another one. So it's a continued life cycle. If we looked at all of these, hopefully you'll see, because everyone starts talking about, I'll get all of the certificates for IECX and I'll be happy. These are all about error classification, so understanding the competence of where the zones are, defining the zones, installation of equipment and wiring systems, going back to part 14, etc. So I could sit all of that lot, take a long time, lots of money, continually go through the So it all depends on what you do, because you might only ever do that, or you might only ever do that. So you need to understand what your job role is and how you want to be seen as competent. There's also, I did put up hand for complex. This is more of a practical installation scheme, separate to IEC, but I needed to put it in here because there are others available. Okay? Well, I'm not biased all in one. And that's the end of my presentation. Hopefully I didn't overrun too much. And thank you for your time.